before we get into the bulk of our work this evening, I would like to just acknowledge and share that tonight marks the last meeting for Jerry Doherty, who has served this board for, is it almost 2 decades?
So like 2004-ish, yeah.
So yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, and actually this school, since he was an itty bitty boy, which might be hard to believe because he's so tall, but, and while we have not always seen eye to eye, that's really what democracy is all about, right? Spirited debate and different viewpoints, and ultimately working toward what we all believe is the best for our students and our community. Public service is definitely not for the faint of heart, but it is commendable that anyone would step into the arena and stay there for as long as you have. And that's not to say you won't be back, especially on the other side of the table. For the time being, we're back on this side. So I just would like to ask everyone to join me in thanking Jerry for all that he's done. Just ask if anyone else has anything they'd like to share in terms of our students and good things that are happening in our community and that they've seen.
I'll save it for my report.
Okay, yeah, that's okay. I will share one other thing. I just got a love note from our students, and I just want you to, if you get a moment, it is really lovely to see a child's handwriting on a note. So I didn't even get a chance to fully read it, but I'm going to let Amy and Aaron do the bulk of the talking on it, but we've had some really lovely things happening, not only here, but in our middle school and our high school. And this is just a really great time of year to keep in mind all of the good work that's being done as we kind of mark the end of one year and start the beginning of another. So anyone else have anything on that or anything else? Okay. All right, so with that, we will turn to the work at hand. The first order of business is to approve the minutes from January.
Can I make a correction?
Sure.
My name is spelled wrong.
Okay. Is there another motion someone wants to make?
Yeah, I noticed a couple of spots where I'd like to have the opportunity to kind of work with the document to make a correction before we take it up. So I'd like to suggest a motion to table this until next month so that we can work on edits.
Okay, so there's a motion to table.
Second that.
Second, okay. Any further discussion on that? Okay. All in favor? Okay. All right, so we'll table that until next month. And if anyone has edits or revisions, you can either share them with us ahead of time, which may be easier, or bring them to the meeting and we'll make sure that they get incorporated so we can approve with this month's minutes, hopefully. Okay, with that we will turn to item 3, which is citizen comments. Okay. All right, we'll have an opportunity again, so we'll move on. Item 4, presentation of school programs.
None.
Okay. 5, old business. Okay. 6, instructional issues. Okay. 7, consider personnel actions. All right. 8, business affairs.
Please have an update of, we've got the status report.
Mhm.
How much is in the
Do you want to, I think speaking up into the microphone and speaking up would be great.
Oh yeah, that's a good reminder for anyone who's speaking. If you could speak into the microphones, please.
I just wanted to give an update on the special ed tuition line, which covers services for multiple students at multiple grades. We had started the year with nothing budgeted there in that line. So far, we've expended $139,319. We have $63,000 encumbered, and we have several changes occurring within this week and next week. And I expect a significant increase in the amount encumbered. So I still continue to look at IDEA funds available. We have $21,000 available to cover some of that cost, and additionally, anticipating coming to hearing to take money out of the trust fund.
Pam, could you give us that number one last time? That the first number you said was 1?
Sure, the first number was 139,319. That covers multiple services for multiple students. We have 63,000 encumbered. We have 21,000 in IDA that will be expended. That's 2 different years of IDEA. And I am anticipating accessing the trust fund this year.
Thank you. Any other items for the status report?
No.
No. Okay. Anyone over here? Any questions? Okay. All right. Then we'll move on to the declared equipment surplus.
I make a motion to declare the equipment surplus.
Is there a second on that?
I'll second them.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? All right. Administrators' reports.
The first, okay. So we had an FYI item on here for regarding the roles and responsibilities of the election process as it relates to the town versus school. And so I've prepared a document that's in the packet for you all to review. But Karen and I co-created this, Karen Burton at the town, just to clarify who does what the timelines are, how we collaborate through the election season. And so I'll just highlight a few things that have come up as questions. For example, who tracks vacant board seats? How do people go about signing up? What's the school board's role in assisting the town with the election itself? Kind of all of those pieces, so I'll highlight a couple of those. So interested candidates sign up at the town, not at the school. Sometimes we get calls at the SAU that says, I want to run for school board, we say, oh, you gotta go to your town. Once people sign up, the town notifies the SAU and provides us with a list of candidates. One thing Karen and I have agreed needs improvement is that when people sign up, they need to also indicate which seat they're signing up for. There's different forms that are used in different towns. We were able to kind of share resources and make some improvements there. That's to ensure that we know exactly who's in which seat and that the ballots are accurate, as well as like the historical records, obviously. So I think moving forward, that's going to be much cleaner, which is great. The town historically has tracked who moves in and out of which seats, as have the school. So we all maintain our own individual records regarding that, and then whenever there's a question, we put our heads together and make sure our information is consistent with one another. But ultimately, the school district maintains the records. So this year, there's one seat that's for 1 year. That's due to Melinda's appointment. And then there's one vacant seat that's 3 years due to, obviously, Jerry's term expiring. Just want to point out that there was a clerical error in the annual report that listed 2 seats, both for 3 years. That's not correct, but the ballot is correct. So we don't need to worry that there's any sort of issue with the election itself because the ballot is correct. And Karen and I have confirmed that numerous times. Let's see. There's also, I I think just been some general confusion in the past, and I can attest to the complexity of tracking all of the information as people shift around or people leave their seat prior to when their term expires. But Karen and I are 100% that the town and school are on the same page as far as the vacant seats. And I think we know what we need to do moving forward as far as making sure that that information remains accurate and is well communicated back to the board and to the community. And so there's one thing though that in working with Karen, which has been great, that I just wanted to bring up is that across our towns, there's some varying levels of participation as far as the school board's role in assisting with the elections themselves. And so moving forward, at least here in Jackson, we really want to support the town as much as we can and be true partners with them. So that started, I think, a little bit this afternoon when we helped to confirm the number of ballots. We've got board members meeting tomorrow at the town to help collate the ballots. So just things like that we can do to help support them in running the election itself. I don't know if there are specific questions about the material that we co-created together, but I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Micah?
Awesome. Amy, thank you. This is helpful. I'd like to ask for, if possible, a one-pager or a two-pager that is this is the way this was designed is in response to questions, and to have a summary of like what the process is so that it's really clear. This is what it is, which we can share out to the school community, we can share out on multiple platforms. And I'd also like to ask to add in the way to support our citizens to register to vote and to go through the supervisors of the checklist so that they can vote in time at the school board meeting, the school budget meeting. So that was a piece that wasn't in here, but it's very tied together. So for example, if people didn't register to vote before March 1st, they were not allowed to be, I'm not going to use the right language, they're not allowed to be certified by the supervisor of the checklist. Did I get that at all? Are they certified? They're not certified. There's something, anyway. In any event, tonight, the supervisors of the checklist are here, but you can't come here and register to vote. So all of these things, being someone who did not grow up in New Hampshire in this system, can be really confusing. And what I'd like to do is have all this information come together, right? So it's like, here's how it runs, this is what the terms are, and also so that we're doing a really good service to our community about how people can be here. Because just so people know, you can show up the day of the town vote and you can register, and the supervisors of the checklist are there. And that can happen at that date. If anyone, for example, were to come here tonight, they would not be able to register and be allowed to vote. So these pieces are really important, and how we keep encouraging people for civic participation. And I'm happy to help with that part.
Yeah.
Karen knows all of it, but what I want to land on is having a very succinct, this is what we're doing and how it works, so that we can use that as our touchstone to take the next step beyond this really well-compiled Q&A to move into, here is the summary of how this is going to work and who's doing what and when. Is that possible?
Yeah, I can work with Karen on that for sure.
Awesome. Okay. Is it also possible that we can have a shared calendar at all, so that we can make sure that, for some of the suggestions were in January, that this is triggered, so that we know whether it's already in the January school board packet, whether there is a Jackson School Board SAU calendar, we have our school board meetings there, just so that there are these key reminders so that that doesn't fall through the cracks.
Just to clarify, so a shared
Yeah.
calendar about which tasks are.
What I want to make sure is that we're really doing all we can to make sure we don't get behind on this, and so that everything is done in advance as best as it can be. So what I read in this document was that in January, the town clerk knows, hey, these are the vacancies, we're confirming this, and we're able to work backwards from our success point, both for people to be registered to vote and to have gone through the process of the supervisor of the checklist, and also in terms of terms. So what I'm suggesting is that we have some calendaring it inside of it.
Yeah, I mean, the registering to vote doesn't have anything to do with the school piece, but I can get with Karen to make sure it's all in one place. If that's
Great.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yeah, thanks very much, Amy, and thanks for that summary. And I just want to put it out there that I tried to educate myself a little bit over the last year or so about this process. I think we all owe Karen a deep debt of gratitude. She has, one of the reasons that you see a little bit more attention to the process on the part of the school board is that I think Karen has generously kind of managed many of these processes above and beyond her actual duties. And so to the extent that the school board is taking greater participation in the process, my understanding is that that really reflects stuff that we probably should have been doing all along to help Karen out, but she was uncomplainingly doing the work about herself. And so I really am grateful to her for her work and appreciative of her for continuing to participate.
Anyone else? Yetta, did you have something for me?
Oh, chocolate chip cookies.
Anyone else on that? Okay, just, I have one question. So just as far as the question of what to do if it's contested, I think the question was if there's a contested race, meaning more than one person's running.
Gotcha.
How, just making sure those logistics are clear where you put your name and whatnot. So just clarifying that one question.
Great. We will interpret that as what if
If it's the,
Vacancy.
you know, like the vacancies.
the vacancies.
Yes, yeah. But I thought it was meant the other way. And then going forward, if folks have questions or clarification they'd like, as you're fine tuning this, to you?
Sure.
Or, okay.
And Karen and I know each other forever, and so we can work together. It's great.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, moving on then. Oh, yes, please.
One more, no, so one more,
Yes.
on to a different topic, if that's okay. There were a lot of questions being brought forward, understandably so, about just some recent legislative changes that have come down our way. So I just wanted to speak generally to how you and the school board, how us as administration, as a principal, how we address those things. Obviously, the past few months have been a whirlwind of information, both presented like in the news, sent to us directly from our state contacts, also guidance received from various associations like School Board Association or Administrators Associations, etc. And I just have to say much of what we're getting, even specifically the volume of changes that we're receiving is unprecedented. So I think it's really important that we sift through what's required of us at this moment, due to revised statutes, et cetera, versus what's advisory only at this time, and just continue to work really hard to keep up with the many tasks that were given specific to revised statutes. So one of the pieces, just to note specifically, is the policy revision. For example, there was a change made in our Title IX policies and procedures, that's around sexual harassment and discrimination, where we, not too long ago, revised our policies to reflect new rules from 2024. That's now been, we've been required to go back to the 2020 rules, which then requires us to go back and revise all of the policies that pertain to harassment, discrimination, etc., including all of the procedures around handling Title IX investigations that come our way. So some of those pieces, those new requirements, cause us to have to swiftly react, right? Which is why we're holding joint policy committee meetings across all of our districts in the SAU, which will then be brought to the executive committee of the SAU board and then ultimately for approval in each individual district. So we're just working hard to keep up, but some things are just advisory only, other things cause us to have to do something immediately. So if there's any question about any piece of new legislation that's coming down, certainly, throw those questions our way, and we can make sure to bring it up in conversation here. I think that's it, unless there are specific questions. And I did include those links for you. So the technical advisories from the Department of Ed, are a good place to go to see what guidance we're receiving as school districts around new changes. And also the School Board Association posts updates pretty frequently, and those are another great resource there for folks to check out. Yeah. Yeah, I may, yeah, the Title IX, Pam is correct me, I may have misspoke, came from a court case, not new legislation around that. And then did I include the Dear Colleague letter?
The Dear Colleague letter is in the policy committee
Right, packets,
and then it will come to the full board with the policies that are recommended.
Right, so probably at our next meeting, you guys will be approving those new policies that we revised.
Okay, I don't think people can hear Pam, but it's
That's
worth
fine.
hearing what you're saying, so if you could just share that.
I apologize, I was trying to talk through Amy. So I was just pointing out that although we're talking about legislation and there are links to legislation and data about legislation, that the Title IX rules that changed from the Title IX 2024 to Title IX 2020 was based on a court case in Kentucky. And there's a Dear Colleague letter from the Office of Civil Rights, the Federal Office of Civil Rights regarding that. So it's pretty complex. We tried to rush to get to policy committee meetings as quickly as possible. In the event a complaint does arise, that's why we're moving this so quickly, so that we're following the right policy, because currently we have policies for 2024 in place, but the new ruling is 2020. So it's a little complex. You'll see it in our agendas in the future as soon as we can get to the committees.
Jesse?
Joe.
Just for clarification, when it comes to Title IX or any of these policies specifically, I guess, really, when our policy that we have isn't current, we go by the current either Title IX rules, or so even if our policy doesn't reflect it, you're still going to be following the current rules as they exist, not what our policy says.
That's correct, yes.
That is correct, Jerry. There are also, the procedures need to be clarified.
Right.
And the urgency is really about that, especially with so many unknowns right now legally from the federal government. Our attorneys in all of our districts are encouraging us to get this updated as soon as possible.
Anything else? Thank you. Then we'll move on to, do you have anything?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, we'll move on to principal.
Okay, so we've been really busy since coming back from vacation. I just want to highlight a few things that we've been doing. One thing that we've been working on, the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders have been working on their STEM projects. So there's the STEM Expo that's going to be happening on March 19th. This is a great opportunity. All this work is being done in the classrooms. We've integrated it into a science unit. And one neat thing about this is our 4th graders get an opportunity to go up and work with our 5th and 6th graders, which is just, it's nice to see, and it gives them a new experience. So that's been exciting. Today, our 3rd and 4th graders took a trip to Kennett High School band to watch the band up there with some other students, and they came back all smiles, and they're like, those kids are so cool. They're so much bigger, and they were like, had to walk through the halls. So it was awesome for them. We have a very strong music program here, and our hope is that those students will continue as they get older. So that was a great opportunity today. Ms. Weeder took them up to the high school. It's also Read Across America Week. We're very lucky. Our kids, we have to oftentimes ask them to stop reading, like during certain times. But this week we're really trying to celebrate a joy and love of reading with our kids, doing some different activities. And if you see us looking kind of crazy some days with crazy hats or wacky outfits, that's because we have a nice spirit week this week for the students. On Monday, we had our ski-a-thon, and it was a little bit cold, but it was such a beautiful day. And this has only been my 2nd ski-a-thon to be part of. And as I reflect back on it, this specific event really shows the power of a small school or a community school, and how it really brings people together. If you're on the course, you see not only students, you see parents. We had alumni there. We had our local police department put on some skis and joined us. Friends, we had a Yeti come. The kids were pretty excited about that, trying to find out exactly who was in there. And we don't have all, so it's a fundraiser for the PTO. We don't have all the results in, and we're going to celebrate the kids in an all-school meeting. But some preliminary results showed that the students did 469 laps, which we calculated to be 291 miles, which would bring us from Jackson to New York City in a straight line, correct? Yeah. So 291, and it's K through 6, and I think some kindergarten parents were probably surprised by how many laps their kiddos skied and how much they're gonna have to pay out per lap. But boy, the kids just, they inspire me. They're just like whipping around there. But it really showed how they demonstrate our school pledge, like to have community learning and fun, and the way the older kids would come by the younger kids and encourage them. I am not a Nordic skier. I've started, and I can see why it's an important part of this community. So that happened on Monday, and there's a lot that went into that. And what else do I have on here? And on that note, I just also wanted to recognize, I have the success report here that was written by Victoria Hill as our Nordic season just came to an end. And I'll put some copies out, but a couple of the highlights I just wanted to share that she had put in here was that through this program, we introduced 2 middle school students to the sport. We hosted here our first race, and I think we had some eager volunteers who was actually, for that race, were shoveling snow onto the course, which was, that was nice of them. We have several skiers placing in the top 10 at multiple races, including several top 5 finishes. The girls team won, winning one of the overall races. 2 boys skiers placing in the top 25 in the coaches series race. Girls team placing 7th out of 21 schools at the state finals, and they were only operating on half a team. And 1 boy placing top 25 at state finals, and 1 girl placing top 20 at state finals. And just some community members and organizations to recognize is Jackson Ski Touring, Peter Benson, Steve Petro, and the Mount Washington Nordic Club. Also coaches Mike Dufalo and Kathleen Maynard, who donated all of their time to this. And I think it was more extensive than any of us thought to make this happen, but we're excited to open conversation about what that would look like next year to continue this and make sure it continues in our communities. And that's all I have for right now, in addition to my report, unless anyone has any questions.
Thanks. Thank you. All right, so we'll move on then to board member issues, and we have committee and meeting reports, and I'll touch on the high school options, but I am wondering, did we have any other committee meetings this month? Did we have transportation?
No, that was rescheduled.
Oh, that was rescheduled, okay. So a brief update on high school options. The high school options committee just met, and its main objective was just to review its charter and deliverables, and essentially making sure that it had fulfilled its duty and obligations. So the general consensus there was that it had, and got as far as it could within its parameters and confines of what it was able to do, and its relationship with the board. So it is at present in a state of waiting for either direction from the board or to be disbanded. So that's something that the board will have to decide. And I did ask the committee, you know, are you okay if we sort of leave you for a moment while we're working on other things, because we may or may not need you, and they'll do whatever is needed. So that's one update, and the other update is simply that I think it's especially because of election time and budget time, but we are in the midst of trying to get a meeting with Conway, which is proving to be actually quite difficult. But we're hoping for that in the next couple weeks. And we're also working on just getting actual refined, detailed language from Freiburg so that we really understand what the parameters would be for anything, so that we can bring it to the board for consideration. And so essentially we haven't made a ton of progress since last we all met. it's a matter of waiting at this point for information to come in. Yes, Micah?
I think that as far as the board or excuse me, as the committee goes, I think that if they're willing to be there, should we have other work where they would be supportive, I think that that's great, unless there's a market advantage to having it stop. But I think being able to say, hey, you guys have these systems set up if you're willing to jump in, but effectively they're defunct unless we need them to be, or they're paused unless we need them to be doing action.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, I agree. And just to make sure that I understand our current status in conversations with counterparties, my understanding is that discussion of terms is still ongoing, and that those discussions haven't concluded. And once discussions about terms get to a place of mutual agreement, then a contract would have to be drafted. And then that draft of a contract would be presented to the board to approve or not approve, and then eventually the voters would get a say. So it seems to me that while a lot of progress has been made in terms of the negotiation, we still have a lot of work to do in order to get to a place where the school board feels like there are terms and a contract that it can present to the voters. And it seems to me that it makes sense to, if they're willing, to ask the high school options committee to be available if things come up along the way, until we get to that end point where the voters get to kind of look at the final product.
Yeah, and just to clarify a little bit of what you're saying, James, there are actually we're in a little bit of two different places with the two institutions. Conway essentially sent a written document that was essentially a contract to, I can't say what it did tell the other 7 towns, but I believe they were trying to do the same thing with everyone. So we received a written document that the board has been able to look at and respond to. So we're at the point right now where we're trying to refine and understand terms and to clarify things. So I think the key word is we're clarifying, understanding, using a document. Once we can clarify things, that's when we're hoping that we can bring it forward for discussion. As far as Freiburg goes, we did not start with a written document. So what we're trying to do is get something in writing, because it becomes a lot more precise, and what we're finding is that it's really helpful to even talk about getting something in writing. So what we're hoping is ultimately we'll have 2 things in writing that are not binding. It will just give us the ability to look at them and say, okay, let's parse this out. At that point, the board will be able to present whatever the board presents to the public, and we don't know what that will be. It could be 1, could be 2, could be both, whatever. But there's still details that have to be worked out. And part of what's happened is it's essentially the committee has passed the baton off, because there were certain things that the committee could not do that had to happen within the purview of the board. So, and one more clarification, if I may, is that, and I'd like to just keep reaffirming this for the public, the board ultimately will be making a recommendation and looking to approve and sign a contract, but the public will get approval over that contract and approval over the budget. So this conversation is not over. In fact, we're just waiting for real information so that we can have real conversations. And that, I think, is where we're hoping to go within the next, hopefully, 2 to 4 months.
Thank you.
Yeah, anyone else? Okay. Board discussion. Anyone have anything else to discuss? Okay. All right. So we will hold on the next High School Options Committee meeting date. But one of the things we've been trying to do is get meeting dates on our agenda so that they are present in everyone's minds. And well, you all have them in front of you, just some reminders for folks. We have the Jacksontown Voting Day on March 11th from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Whitney Community Center right here. We have the S89 Executive Committee meeting on Thursday, March 13th at 5 p.m. the SAU 9 school board meeting, March 13th at 6 p.m., and then the SAU 9 and SAU 13 joint board meetings, March 26th at 6 p.m. And we don't know what will happen with the reorganization of the board, whether I'm chair or someone else is chair, and I will strongly encourage you all to think about jumping in as chair if you want to do that. But whoever's doing that, one thing I just would like to say is it would really be great if we all can try to make it to these meetings, which is why we're trying to get these here. So,
I just want to flag that our next school board meeting is in vacation week.
yes, I do
And
have
if
that.
there's any way that we cannot have school board meetings scheduled during vacation week, it just feels
Yeah.
relatively illogical to me that that's how we're doing it. So I, for one, am not able to be here in person. I could do Zoom, but if we need to move it, we should.
I was actually going to say, I will not be here either.
I can do Zoom, but I won't be.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how about we move it, and I will ask, would you prefer to move it via well, we'll actually have new members, so shall we
We have to
wait
do
for
it.
the election, and then could we could we reschedule that meeting for a different date in April, once we have the election over?
The only date your SAU folks, including myself, would be available would be Tuesday the 29th.
Oh, okay. Let's see then.
We have meetings every other day.
Oh, my goodness. All right, can you all do the 29th?
Yeah, Tuesday's the 29th.
Tuesday, April.
I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, stop.
I did a reminder.
Come back to 25.
Okay.
Like that. All right, we know we have a quorum.
Yeah, that works.
Tuesday the 29th?
And it also works in 2026 if you want to
Okay.
get
All right,
Saturday.
so you look it through, okay.
All
I
right.
think that means you'll be here. Stay on, I love it like that. Okay. All right, so we'll move it to the 29th then.
We're just going to check on space availability
Okay.
in this room.
We have to do go while everything's happening, we'll all get very nice, it's fun, yeah, that's okay. Yeah. All right, anything else in any of this? Okay, all right, then we'll turn it over to citizen comments. Yes?
I would ask the board to be mindful that Canton High School is the public school for the majority of the children in the greater Mount Washington Valley. And every dollar that you remove from our public high school hurts. And you're considering giving it to a very well-endowed private school. And what you're doing is if you do that, it's harmful to the public school that is the only option for the majority of the children in our valley.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes?
Hi, Peter Baxter Jackson. I was just, I wasn't sure if there was going to be a reading of that policy JVCC regarding tuition students and employees, but I would again, I assume that's going to be on for a second reading and final vote at some point. If it hasn't been already done, I missed it.
We can't respond to comments, but we can talk to you afterwards.
You can't comment on when it's going to be voted on? You can, you just choose not to, is what you mean.
Anything else?
Yes. I could go on and on, but I'll try and keep it brief. At the last meeting, I made comments about what I thought was a very unfair policy to this district. I continue to think that, and the board, one of the board members said it's a recruiting and retention tool. And I thought a little bit about that, and it is probably a recruiting and retention tool for people and students, but it's also discriminatory and unfair to those who do not have children. Benefits to any employee should be broad-based and equal to all, not just to those with children or those without children. So I would encourage you all to look at that policy again and at least reinstate it to its former self while you still have the opportunity. I know now that there are new school board members coming in, so we'll probably have to have this conversation again, and now I understand that the next meeting has been changed since there was a February meeting. I guess I'll leave it at that, and I'll just reiterate, you can respond to things, you just are choosing not to respond to things.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Then we don't have a non-public session, do we? No? Okay. Then we're looking for motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
All right, second?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor? Okay. With that, thank you very much. And Jerry, thank you very much for your service.
Thank you, Jess.
Thank you, Jerry. This is one. This is one.
This year, my understanding is that this year we're going to do this, but all of the schools in the district went to the family policy in order to address this, like teacher shortage that was happening, and in fact, there was so from Jackson, Conway, and so Jackson stayed up there. Policies. So that we weren't at a disadvantage. But the shitty is, so now it's just like, the first was free, and then the second was closed. And there was also a variation. Hey! But, yucky.
I didn't have to do anything at all. I just went to sleep. Eventually, shut up.
Where are you going?
How are you? Just Anna and everybody. So I did, it's new underwear week. Guess what popped up?
New underwear?
New underwear. Everybody gave Belinda a giant eyeful of the bottle with the, tiny ladies on it.
That is amazing. So it's not only no.
Oh, I don't know if anybody else is getting it. You can take a survey of the room. Everybody was...
a good icebreaker. Keith is like, I'm just going to keep staring.
I know,
Like,
yeah.
nobody tries to bring me into this. Just being funny. And we're so good now.
Oh, really? Oh, that's a nice.
White. Like everything.
Nice.
Oh. Interesting. You never knew. Learn something every day. I hope we turn the video on.
I know. This is your opportunity to talk to me.
Yep, stay right here. No one can come with anything else. More Yoda, less Darth Vader.
So, like, smoking cessation.
I went around.
It's just, I'm not sure.
I'm sorry to bother you. Can I ask you a question? Is the camera still on?